Frankly, the fact that we ran this ad had a fantastic effect. It was like an electrifying effect. The fact that it was under the World Jewish Congress had an effect. A day or two later, the President Obama wrote a letter to the President of Conference of Presidents, Alan Solo, basically saying, I've been misunderstood. I really do want to do everything with Israel. And he said that he would, in fact, relook at his whole campaign, what he's doing. Then the next day, this appeared in the Financial Times, which basically says, Obama plays down rift with Israel. The following day, in the New York Post, you had this. It says, behind O's, which is Obama's quick flip on Israel. And basically he cites the fact of my letter as well as the letter of Elie Wiesel and some of the other things happened. Well, the fact that he changed his point of view very, very much. For those of you who may not have known what happened, when Prime Minister Netanyahu was in Washington at the AIPAC conference, after his speech, he was invited to the White House at 8 o'clock in the evening, thinking it was for a dinner. He arrived at 8 o'clock. There was a point of view that no photographers were allowed to take a picture of the two of them together, and it was a total press blackout. He met with Obama, and they had a very, very contentious session, at which time Obama gets up and says, I'm going upstairs to eat with my family. If you change your mind, call me, and walks out. And Netanyahu had to leave the White House alone, and again, there was a total blackout of that. I spoke to Henry Kissinger, and he said in his 30 years of diplomatic life, he's never seen something like this. Frankly, Obama was furious at Israel and took it out on the Prime Minister. It was a very, very difficult thing because this was a message that was sent out to all the countries in the world, basically saying Israel and the United States are not standing together. That prompted very much this letter. And the fact is also there was a survey done by myself as well as different groups talking about the fact that President Obama, when he was originally elected, was elected with 78% of the Jewish vote in the United States. Today, or a few weeks ago, before this, it was down to 54%, which was basically a third drop. And today, I believe, it's below 50%. For a Democratic president to have less than 50% of the Jewish vote is unprecedented. Almost anybody who ran for president could get over 50% of the vote, of the Jewish vote. They ran the Democratic ticket. If Ben-Gurion ran on the Republican ticket, he wouldn't get more than 50%. The basic factor is that Obama has concept of trying to bring Israel down and to try to make it and impose a peace treaty on them. He found out that he could not do it, and now is taking a different tact. George Mitchell, who has been very, very tough in Israel, apparently on his last visit a few days ago was much kinder and much more understanding. Hillary Clinton, who 2 weeks ago called up the Prime Minister and beat him up, literally called him up this time and said, let's forget about what happened in the past. Congratulations on your Independence Day, and let's start and make a new beginning. So I can't say that this letter was the major change, but this letter, Elie Wiesel wrote a letter about Jerusalem, and in fact, it's the historic capital, and don't mess with Jerusalem. Various other people have written. Ed Koch, the former mayor of New York City, said, "Don't throw Israel under the bus while you're trying to appease the Arabs." All in all, there was a major change in the attitude. But I think the key factor for all of this is that this was done under the name of the World Jewish Congress. And for all the people out there, for the first time they could see a new World Jewish Congress that was standing up for Israel. Very different than the things we've done in the past. This is not Soviet Jewry, this is not Waldheim, this is not Swiss banks. This was, for the first time, standing up for Israel. It was a major change, but I think it's a change for the positive. Also in that article that I wrote was something about the fact of Iran, and the fact that right now the president, who before said Iran could never have a nuclear weapon, has now told certain people around him, particularly in the military, that they should start planning for Iran to have the nuclear weapon, because he realizes he can't get sanctions through. And the fact is that, or strong sanctions. Weak sanctions he can get, but strong sanctions he may not be able to get through. And the second aspect is that the consequences of a bombing raid or a military strike would be more than he may want to take. So he feels that he has a better chance of succeeding having Iran have a nuclear weapon and trying to work with them that way than going the other way. I don't particularly agree with that, but that's a whole different question. But more important than that, the World Jewish Congress, which took a very point of view about Israel, has also taken a very strong point of view about Iran having a nuclear weapon. And both these areas work on three things: with Iran, peace treaty with the Palestinians, and the delegitimization of Israel, which we've all spoken about. Because as Israel becomes more of comes closer to the United States and becomes more viable, I think the question of delegitimization goes down. Interesting enough, and I can't substantiate this in any way, there seems to be less anti-Semitism around, and various governments who were being critical of us and being critical of Israel, all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, and I think Ron can attest to this, all of a sudden, once again, reaching out to us to have a conversation. So all in all, it's, as I said, it's been a pretty good week, a pretty good month for the World Jewish Congress. And again, from the people who are on the committee who approved the letter, I thank them all, and I thank you all. Also, one of the things that happened, I had a conversation with the New York Times, which was a mistake on my part, but I did it. And at the end of the interview, the reporter said, "Did President Netanyahu know about this letter?" I said, "Look, as a matter of respect to him, I told him a letter would be coming out, but he had no idea what was in the letter and had no knowledge of it." So she wrote it in such a way that it sounded like he knew about the letter, period. It caused a little difficulty. I will tell everybody, and I wrote a correction to the New York Times, which naturally they did not print, but basically the concept was he had no idea what was in the letter, because I would not coordinate it with it, because it should not be done. And just for the record, he did not know anything about the letter other than the fact the letter is being sent. And again, I thank those who, who supported the letter from me. Now,
That's finished.
okay, I now have I turn it over to Michael. I think, is there any questions, by the way, about, and by the way, this letter and what we're doing is not the only thing we'll be doing. We'll be doing many more things in times coming up. I'm working on editorial an op-ed piece about Iran, which I think you'll all see before I send it out. And I think that what's happened now is that the World Jewish Congress becomes much more relevant to many of the people around many of the governments.